get on to our next talk. Ali Farooqui is here to talk about cybersecurity. Security is something that obviously we need in our projects, some more than others. Some is present in some more than others, but I think we need to figure out how we justify its place in the projects and do it the right way. Shall I let you give the talk?
Let's
do
it.
that. Huge round of applause, as before. Ali Farooqui.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. So I'm Ali Farooqui, as Phil's already said. I'm the head of the cybersecurity service, and I've got a background in systems engineering, platform security, systems design, architecture, all of those fun things. All of the art that you're going to see here, and it's a loose term art, it's drawn by me on my iPad. I wanted to justify that purchase. My wife's been teaching me how to draw, and there are bits where she's drawn in, so a little bit of credit to her. I guess we're going to talk about what every technologist needs to know about security and some tidbits, some things I've learned over the past sort of 10, 15 years. I think primarily what people ask and what I've heard a lot of people say is, well, when should we start thinking about security? Because the knowledge that you'll see from battle-hardened veterans is it should be the first thing that you should be thinking about. Do you know what? Start thinking about it right now. Start thinking about it yesterday. But that's not the reality, is it? In any complex engagement, you're going to find that security is sometimes considered right at the end. It's the last bit of the digital backbone, or you'll get to the compliance bits or the audit bits, and suddenly you're thinking about security. Now, here's where I start bringing up baselines. If you have heard of the security baseline or simple security posture management bits and bobs, you'd have heard the term of, say, a compliance baseline like NIST 853. A lot of us cybersecurity folk love some of these compliance standards. But there's another one. Back in, I want to say more than a decade ago, Wendy Nather, she brought up the idea of the security poverty line. So the security baseline is, what does good look like? And everyone who's below it is probably missing a few controls, but they're generally okay. The security poverty line is like right at the bottom. And if you're below this, you're right for the plucking. And a lot of times, the projects that I interact with have enough resources where they're not thinking about the poverty line, or the primary, most sensitive parts of those projects don't have to worry about the cybersecurity poverty line. But parts of the business do actually, and that's where you see those ransomware attacks come in. That's where you see parts of the weakest links getting compromised. This particular concept is quite nebulous, and it moves around quite a lot because it depends on how your project is positioned, or what the customers are, or where you sit in that big puzzle. And the other interesting bit about this is that change might not even matter. That conversation might not even matter because your project might be so far below the poverty line, and you might not even know about it because you're not measuring it. That conversation doesn't matter. So how do you find this line? But before we can find that line, let's talk about the current cybersecurity meta. It's all about money, unfortunately. Cybersecurity is seen as a tax. There are a number of people here, I assume, that are working with cloud security products, and they live across the cloud and on-premise infrastructure. They probably build things in a variety of quite simple, new age ways. Unfortunately, that ecosystem of tools that you get might not be available to you. And if you have a set of tools, you might not be using them in the best way possible because a lot of these tools cost a lot of money. And when everything costs money, the first thing that starts getting cut down is cybersecurity tooling, or cloud security tooling, or how you measure and audit. There'll be steps that will be cut down, and suddenly the conversations that you're having with your project people, with the people that make the business decisions, isn't about how to do security better. It's about, well, how do we position security in a way where it's cost effective? And that's painful for me, because sometimes you'll talk to people about security, you'll talk to people about how to do effective, responsible security, and the answer will always be, well, let's buy another tool. Or you can't buy another tool because it costs a lot of money. Or let's use this open source tool where you don't have the engineering skills or the capacity to be able to implement these tools. I worry when organizations start thinking about complex security solutions to solve problems, because they've gone to an event or they've gone to a conference. I was at the AWS Summit and everyone's selling a magic bullet. Unfortunately, there aren't any magic bullets. What you have to do is think about the narrative. Security is not a tax. And I've been in many C-suite conversations recently, unfortunately for myself in some cases, and I found that talking to people who have to make really difficult business decisions is not straightforward. And I think it comes down to talking from a place of, in a lot of cases, what you'll see is people try to scare the money out of the pockets. It's a high risk, high reward gamble, and it doesn't always work. And what I've noticed is that it works less and less unless someone's already under attack. What you actually want to do is you want to think about essentially somewhere a little bit more of a positive look into how you do how you talk about the narrative, how you talk about security as not being a tax. And the first way that I usually talk about it is thinking about compliance wins. You have to get, you need to pass some compliance. Large projects will have very strict compliance requirements, which makes those conversations easier. Think about winning numbers, dashboards, North Stars, that sort of thing. The other bit obviously is when you talk about security and you talk about return on investment, good security generally means that you will save money down the line because you're making decisions that are probably going to mean better engineering decisions are being made along the way, which means less money being spent, less technical debt, etc. There's operational resilience conversations you can have. You can always have the conversation about the risks of not doing security, but I find that the opportunity cost of not doing security is a better way to talk to some of these leadership folk, and bringing the business leaders in the same room and then talking to them about how good security actually ends up helping you tackle complexity, which then ends up helping you make better products, which provides value to customers. That's a really powerful narrative as well. For developers, how many people over here have been passed the responsibility of doing security in your pipelines, and it's essentially just shifted across from the security team. Suddenly, now you're building and solving your own security things, but it's just effort that's been moved across. And you might not even want to be doing some of that bit. That's not to say that shifting security left isn't important. I think it's how it's done. Good security is a byproduct of simple design. And if there were patterns that were thought about right at the start of some of these pipelines being built, you would be handling and managing that complexity much better. And that's also another one of the narratives that's really, really powerful if you're a developer, if you're an architect, if you're an engineer, and you're talking to some of the security folk that are responsible for essentially gatekeeping the pipelines, it's always good to find out how much effort it's taking you to actually build some of these things and monitor them, and how much toil it creates for you sometimes. And then there's conversations about architecture, obviously. The quality of delivery improves just by making the right security architectural decisions. Some of these terms feel quite vague. When I talk to a business leader and I say, we're going to do good security, we're going to build better architecture things, it feels quite nebulous, but there are things that you can latch onto. There's obviously all of the standard stuff that you'll find in like a Robert C. Martin book, clean architecture, etc. But it comes down to the basics. It's about testability. It's about thinking about deployability, agility, modularity, extensibility, all of those things that you should already be thinking about when you're building good tools. And as technologists, as people who make technology decisions or help with the technology conversation, I find that thinking about systems design and helping solve complexity, helping solve thinking about simplicity and simple design, simply design solutions ends up creating better, more secure products in the first place. Now, I know on collaboration, you'll notice there's a robot in there. That's because I think you have to start thinking about how we as teams talk to each other. So there's obviously the conversation that you have within the team, but there's also how do you bring automation along for the ride? And I don't mean just talk to ChatGPT and ask it to do security for you. I think it's not there yet, but there is definitely a conversation that needs to be had every time you're making a decision where you think there's going to be toil. You need to automate that away. That costs money, that costs time, but there is a return on investment. I think there's an XKCD sort of diagram somewhere that someone's already seen where it can take sometimes automating isn't the right solution, but having that conversation within the team is really, really important. If you're doing all of these things right, remediation pathways become clear to you. I don't know how many of you are responsible for doing or are responsible for managing the posture of the organizations that you work for, but I can tell you that resolving critical alerts is primarily what I do on a day-to-day basis. My responsibility is to go in, look at the state of an organization, look at what the alerts look like, and then figure out how to do the most, create an effective security strategy, and then put tasks under the hood to solve the critical alerts first, and then figure out ways to stop it from happening again. And there's a really interesting cloud remediation report that Tamnoon have just released. They say that it takes most organizations an average of 128 days to solve a critical alert. That is surprisingly long. Don't let this be a pattern for your organization. When you think about security right at the start, and when you start thinking about it from a software and security architecture perspective, a lot of these things will become more and more clear because you're going to be thinking about observability right at the start. You're going to be thinking about telemetry right at the start. So a few takeaways. I feel like doing security is great, but here's what I'd like, and maybe there's a little bit of bias in here because this makes my life a little bit easier. Think about security when you create a Jira ticket, please. It would help if you had some sort of like a single bullet point, thinking about, oh, maybe this is not great for when we go into production. Think about it when you demo a feature. Say a sentence about how you've thought about security, even if you're lying to yourself. Think about it when you write a unit test. Maybe those validation sort of tests will really, really help you. There's a few frameworks that are probably worth looking at, and please reach out to me if you have any questions about how we do unit tests within my team. We've been trying to do them better, and I'd love to learn from you as well. Think about it when you go through a user journey. Think about how other people are thinking about security, and think about it when you switch tabs. I can keep going. Basically, if you do nothing today, go back, open your laptop, and look at your organization's risk backlog and write 3 bullet points on the highest risk that you've got on there, how you'd solve it. Just 3 bullet points. Maybe that'll be an interesting exercise. Now, it feels like security is an ongoing effort. It feels like you're someone who's pushing the boulder above, and then suddenly a vulnerability comes out and the boulder's just brought you all the way down. Hopefully culture, thought, leadership, and responsible leadership helps you get to the point where you feel like Sisyphus, but you really do want to imagine Sisyphus happy. I mean, we do this, and it is fun, isn't it? A little bit, at least. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Hopefully this has been good. I hope the drawings have been all right. And yeah, thank you so much. Cheers.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ali.